Welcome, welcome. So happy that you're here. Spirit Bus 33, episode 11. One of my favorite numbers. Um, Recording a little bit earlier this week, flipping it to a Saturday. Oh, episode number 11. Gotta love that good 1111 energy. The number 11 has been a pretty important part of my journey. I think that there are other people who could probably resonate with that. Those of us that kind of tap into the synchronistic type of experience. One of the reasons why I love the number 11 is it represents for many this spiritual awakening or this like stepping into one's faith. It's often known as master number, new beginning, a sort of awakening. So lots of people will see 1111 in different places. When I just am giggling because I looked down at the time was 111 when I said that. Anyway, I digress. Is that we'll see these at the beginning of certain new chapters of awakening. And so, for those of us that speak this language, it's a very powerful number. So, when I'm on episode 11, it gave me a little bit of excitement thinking about the number 11 and what it means for me. For those that do speak this language, it's such a beautiful experience. These synchronicities, whether it be numbers for you or visits from certain animals, repeating animals in your awareness field, repeating phrases. You might, hear something that really, really resonates, and then you're, standing in line at a grocery store and someone behind you that you don't know says it, or there's a bumper sticker that says the same thing. These are pretty phenomenal experiences for those that can see. You could say, on the flip side here, you could just say it's a heightened state of awareness, that was developed out of some reason and it's all coincidence. That's not how I choose to perceive it, but that is a reality for some people that it is just plain coincidence. And if that's your reality, my reality and this podcast might not be speaking your language, and that's okay. But regardless, very excited for number 11 episode. So when I'm thinking about the beauty of number 11, it flipped my awareness to just beauty in general, which then is bringing me to something that I've been thinking about this week about clouds. And I'm talking about real clouds, just the real fluffy, beautiful clouds. And for those of you who are getting maybe the awareness of me using the word real, um, I think that we can move beyond the quote unquote conspiracy theory of people that say there are fake clouds. It's all public knowledge now that there is cloud seeding happening. So there are artificial clouds in our system. And that's not really what I'm referring to, because in this particular state of mind, I'm thinking about the real clouds, not the ones that are being, made from, uh, you know, aircraft spraying, or the factories that are seeding. If you don't know what I'm talking about and you're unsure and you care, do your own research on that. But these real clouds, they play this beautiful, beautiful role, in our life, in a sunrise. I just had a beautiful sunrise experience with a dear friend of doing some cold water immersion and in the beautiful Lake Superior here. Amazing, amazing benefits, for me. Obviously, you see your doctor, do all that stuff, before you make these decisions. But there's something magical about breathing through the pain of this like intense cold, and then your body regulates and the pain goes away and you're left with this beautiful calm. Anyway, back to the clouds. Is that magnificent about what the clouds do for our awareness is the high to mid-level clouds, they catch the red and purple zone tones, and then the low clouds, they catch the orange and gold. And it's basically reflecting the sunlight to the ground, and all the sunlight's getting reflected all over the place. And so when I see that, I get really excited because I want to be a cloud. Like I want to be an authentic, real cloud. And I want to be free of as many chemicals as possible. So I'm putting those artificial clouds to the side over there. I want to be a real, authentic cloud. And I want to be shining back to others that maybe gaze upon me. And so that was where my mind goes with this beauty surrounding us, is that we can take something like the clouds and we can use it to harness, certain beauty that the clouds have. We can look at one another and get inspired, just like when I look at a cloud. Of course, there's some duality within the cloud, duality within all of us. Some days I really feel like I'm just like shining bright, and then other days I'm like this, like really intense lightning storm. I mean, there might be a tornado or a hurricane in there at times too. Those are my least favorite days. But then after the storm comes this amazing rainbow. Lots of lessons, but this amazing rainbow. Speaking of rainbow, is sending out love to all the rainbow people. Just thinking about our LGBTQ plus community, and really just wishing everyone in that community less division amongst one another. So we all are typically coming together, wanting to raise awareness, and I see sometimes some division even amongst one another. So I'm really sending out, less storms within the community. And then also, too, though, just kind of within every community, it's regardless of what community you identify with or you don't, or if you are a solo community, is just like really sending out a lot of peace and hope that we can all kind of connect and reduce the division amongst all of us, and we can just all be clouds, and learn from our storms and radiate that positive light back and forth to one another. I really love when that positive light is like surging. It's like this complete and utter like natural joy feeling. And this idea of joy, of cultivating more joy in your life, is something pretty special to me. And I'm always trying to figure out more ways of doing that for myself and helping other people. And something that I just really comes to mind, is like I want to cultivate as much joy. Like I want to be so protective of my life, to experience so much joy. I'm going to tap into something my mentor would say. It was like, she'd probably say something like, I want to be a joy ho. So, it's just really trying to like get as much joy as possible, just being a little slutty with it. And if that doesn't resonate with that language, you'll probably have to understand my sense of humor as we go along here. But really just being really, really like consciously trying to get as much of it. It's that same as if you had that more, with different maybe unhealthy things. It's cultivating that in a direction that's more positive. Side note, I'm probably not going to enjoy that I said this, but I'm going to say it anyway, is that if there's any, pause or uncomfortability with, the kind of expression, like I'm going to be like a hoe for joy. is that there's a lot of taking things kind of personal, and people using different forms of expression and really taking it like personal. And I understand that we really need to be aware of the things that we say. But I also think that sometimes it can go a little far. In fact, I just found myself as I was saying that out loud, judging myself, being like, oh no, like that is something not kind to say for people, maybe in the adult entertainment business. And, in trying to have this empathy, for using the word hoe. Well, that's a chapter that I used to, be a part of, not exactly the word hoe, but in the adult entertainment business. So is it the same as me being, a member of, the LGBTQ plus community? Is that do I have the rights to say these things? That this gets kind of complicated because then it's like, do we have to say, oh, hold on, just so you know, like I can use this certain phrase because I have a free pass or because I am part of this community or because I have lived experience. Anyway, so that's probably just a tangent. I'm probably going to listen to this back and be like, why did you go there? But again, remember, I'm learning as this is unfolding, and some of it I'm probably going to cringe at myself for, and people might cringe at me too. That's okay. Anyway, moving forward with this idea of like cultivating a lot of joy is take a moment for like a second and think about in your own life. I want you to put aside, though, for this activity, is put aside drugs, put aside sex, food. Am I missing anything? Caffeine. Put aside all those things and visualize something that brings you joy. And just take a moment and really think about what that might be for you. When I do that myself, I'm just like, yes, I want more of that. It's so pure and authentic. And, so sometimes we need to work with somebody to be able to cultivate that, to be able to explore ourselves, to be able to check in on the barriers of what's keeping us from tapping in to types of natural states of joy that we might be more conditioned to get them through some kind of like external pleasure. And then take a moment and feel what it feels like to be in your creative self. Like take a pause the video if you need to, but like the most creative state that you've been in is like sit there and feel it for a moment. Was it when you're creating joy or when you're creating art or you're creating connection with people? Is just sit there and try to feel what that feels like and what is linked to it. What were you doing at the time? And think about, what creative spaces do you want to experience next? Start maybe coming up with a list of, what do you want to create? What is your most desired, biggest idea that you have? And take that and sit with it and visualize it. Visualize yourself already in that role, already doing that thing, already completing that project, already friends with that person. Whatever it is sit and visualize what that feels like, the emotion with it. What do you look like when you're doing it? If while you're doing that visualization exercise is you're starting to have these kind of like intrusive thoughts about like, what would people think? Oh, that idea's already been done, so any kind of negative feedback that you're getting from being perceived, is just take a moment and check in your internal guidance system. Is your creative expression harming somebody? Does it have some malicious intent? Is there something a little fucky about it that doesn't feel good? If the answers are no, then it's not harming anyone. Then I really, really encourage you and invite you to step out of that energy. Fuck that. It's time for you to create. Elizabeth Gilbert, who wrote Big Magic, says, "Nobody is thinking about you. They're all in a bubble of themselves." And that really resonated to me when I read that. And I started paying a little bit closer attention. And really, most people are just thinking about themselves. She describes in her book that, for a moment, when maybe you're doing something in the public and it's like the hot topic for a minute, maybe people are paying attention to you. Or if you fail at something, maybe for a blip, it's like the hot news or something, in the community or public or whatever it is, but it's just a blip. And then people are right back into their own bubble, the next story, so if it's about what other people think, fuck that. Is that it's time for us to be authentic. It's time to stop worrying and do you big. Make it real big. Make it weird. Create a new path. Take a path that's already been created by someone else that you're inspired by and create something similar with your own unique expression to it. Most ideas have been replicated in some way. That doesn't mean that you can't do it. If that was the case, if we could only do new ideas, there would be a lot less creative art everywhere in all sorts of ways. Oh, somebody's already painted before. I can't paint. Somebody's already done a podcast before. Oh, I can't do a podcast. Somebody has already went and got that degree. I can't do that. So it's just that's something that blocks us. What other people think and feeling like it has to be a brand new idea. Once you start stepping into that creative space and going along, you have brand new ideas throughout it because you're a unique expression. So you're going to have that naturally. So observe what's holding you back. If it means get off your phone, if it means put that drug down, you're doing too much. If it means like stop hanging out with people that are not inspiring you, that are draining you, whatever it is that you need to recognize that's holding you back, this is an important chapter for you to take control. A British writer, George Eliot, pen name George Eliot, said, "It will never rain roses. When we want to have more roses, we must plant more roses." When I read that, I was like, yep, yeah, that project, that idea, like it needs you to take steps towards it. It's, you can visualize, and visualization is one of my most favorite healing tools. And sometimes we can visualize something and like, whoa, then it happens. But a lot of the creative expressions that I'm talking about or the goals that we have for ourselves, we have to take steps towards it. We have to show up with practices, towards that goal that have some discipline to it. This is one of the reasons why I really like kind of leaning into those, again, mind, body, belief system practices, is because, a good routine helps our practices kind of like melt together and we can incorporate some of our creative art and ideas into the practices that we're using to regulate ourselves. The word tantra, and there's different ways of saying it. And I'm not talking about like tantric sex. I'm using the word tantra, and some people pronounce it tantra, but I'm just going to say tantric. Yeah, I think it's tantra actually. Anyway, I digress. Is that there's many different ways of saying it, but as far as for this kind of like thought that I'm having is I'm going to use the just say tantra. It's the most comfortable for me. Um, it's like the definition through Sanskrit is, what is it? Oh, it's expansion. It's expanding itself. It's to extend. It's like a woven together, practices. And it helps, with alignment. And so it's really recognizing what practices that you're using as Tantra. And to kind of put like another level to like what I mean by this is like tapping into what Ram Dass says is like using anything external through your senses to go beyond it would then be described as, tantra. And so thinking about like our practices that we're doing can help like clear out, increase clarity, focus. It can help us like kind of know what the next step is, be clear so we can get downloads. It can really help just keep us regulated for that next creative space. So take a moment and think about what practices you have going on. And this can be a really creative approach. And I know I've touched on this before, but yes, we know like meditation, yoga, exercise, prayer, journaling, so many different things, but we can get really creative with this as long as it matches your intuition, your internal guidance system, and you feel that it is beneficial and it is helping in the healing process. I would say it's a good practice. And then figuring out, how focused and disciplined are you on these? And I think that in the beginning, from what I'm kind of learning about myself and working with others, is I think discipline is pretty important. I think after we've gone for a while, after having some discipline with our routine, I think we can, you know, make some adjustments here and there, skip a day, whatever it is. But I think we need to really get real with ourselves though of, am I going to skip today and get right back into my practices tomorrow? Or am I having a hard day and I'm going to give myself grace? Of course. Day 2, okay, how, am I going to get back in on the next day? So it's really just like getting to know yourself and having an understanding of what your discipline needs to look like. It's not uncommon to fall off from our practices and then those clouds start rolling in. You got a little lightning coming, or some thunder is popping up. A lot of the practices, when we truly find our practices, we're having a union with our consciousness. We're slowing down and saying, oh, I matter so much to myself. I love myself. I'm unlearning all of these conditioning aspects that have really taught me to not care about myself. And I'm showing up for myself in this very disciplined, focused way. And I'm doing these big things so I can be the most authentic, creative, favorite version of myself. So, yeah, so it's just getting real, checking in. Why are you not doing it? What do you need to do more of? And then when you get like this routine down that and of course it's going to change over time because you're going to change over time. But then it's like, I think one of the most successful ways that I have found to really propel some of my creative ideas is to pair it with my practices. So a lot of what I talk about is part of what I'm learning. It's incorporated in. And that's one of the reasons why I really love having this podcast is because I like to share what I'm learning. And when I speak it out loud, it sticks in my brain more. This podcast really encourages me to do my practices and not fall off. So it's figuring out how to incorporate what you're wanting to create. If it's art, can you do, let's just say you do your practices in the morning. Can you do your morning meditation, yoga, paint for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, half hour, depending on your schedule? Whatever it is trying to kind of fit it in the most optimal space that really cultivates that joy within you, which then that brings out that cloud energy, that the storms are clearing and the clouds starting to radiate the sun, the rainbow's showing up, you're shining bright, you're feeling good. And it's like, this kind of spiral of we're going through, these different patterns within ourselves and we're learning and we're having the storms and we're having the sunshine and we're learning. And, And we're not going in this repetitive circle where we're doing the same thing over and over and over again, expecting different results. And so it's a flow. Living this type of lifestyle is flow art. And of course, flip side again is being careful that we're not getting so stuck in our practices, is that we can get so consumed in one practice that we can really be neglecting others. So we might be really into these, heady kind of spiritual, let me sit and really like toil around with these ideas, but we're not taking care of our physical self. And that was something that was always challenging and I'm going to reword that because I want to make sure I'm speaking into what I want to create. Historically, it has been challenging for me. I am practicing things that are healing that. Can fine tune that one a little later, but is that, the taking care of the body, the exercise, the movement piece, for a lot of people isn't as rewarding, that had a little stumble there. Okay. Getting my brain back on track. It's not as rewarding. So it's like we can sit and do all the other things, the journals. I have these really great affirmation cards, and I can get really into like wanting to do that and then wanting to put off, the body exercises, even though I really enjoy them. And afterwards, I feel so good that it's done. So it's getting to know what you need to do to be the most optimal. I need to get all of those things done first before the feel good sit. I got to do my yoga. I got to do this like kind of shake machine. I got to do the treadmill or go for a walk or whatever it is. I have to take care of my body first, and then I can sit down, and journal and read and do those things. And so get to know yourself as what you need to do to be the most optimal with your practices and not getting too stuck in one. Because any practice that has like a more attached to it, I would say, we need to check in. Any substance too. If you're using substances that you feel like they help you reach a point of creativity, or you feel like they help you connect spiritually, is I would just recommend being mindful, that you're not ignoring the ramifications. You're checking in, on, okay, this feels good here. Are there any side effects or downfalls, from this that I need to pay attention to? And do your research. And not just what other people are saying, but do your own independent research on multiple search engines, not just Google. Go and get opinions. If it's not on the internet, ask your doctor, but also have maybe a holistic provider, is really just making sure that you're setting your future self up for success. It can be the same, with not just like drugs per se. It can be the same with, I'm drawing a blank, so I'm just thinking about drugs, but it can be the same indulging in, too much journaling, is that you're just journal, and like, oh, this feels so good. I'm writing it out. I'm like writing out what I'm thinking about. And then you're not doing the other practices that help you stay in alignment. And it's just maybe that one. So, yeah, really just a big check-in. I think this is all I got. At the end of this got a little weird. Anyway, I already shuffled because I realized too that I could pause and shuffle so you don't have to sit through the shuffling. So I'm just cutting the deck 3 times here. We're on the 8th. And this is card control. So this is a good one for this episode. Talks a little bit about sitting in that rigid state, being very rigid with your belief system, right, wrong, those cognitive distortions, is making sure that you're leaving room to see that life is a spectrum. There is a whole variety of experiences going on at the same time, and to check in to make sure that you're not getting so rigid in your own that you're causing more division and harm, and also that you're relinquishing control within your own life. Are you holding on to control in a certain area that is detrimental in another? Thinking about what control means for you. Are you feeling so out of control that you're using something unhealthy because you feel like you can get a sense of control with that? You can feel when you kind of think about the word control, and you think about what that feels like energetically in your body is the shoulders kind of go up a little bit, your hands kind of close, fist tense. So if you're feeling that, like, release that in your body. So I think that's it. Thanks for listening. I think that the staying on track is getting a little better, but I think this is quite the learning experience. So I appreciate all that have continued to listen. And I hope that you continue to journey on with me. And again, just really grateful for this experience. And I hope that you have a really great week. And I will see you on episode number 12 next week, hopefully.